I'm Jeff Fischel. Welcome to Legends and Legacies, brought to you by Duke's Mayonnaise. Duke's, it's got twang. I hope you enjoyed the first 2 episodes of our series on CJ Spiller and his long-term impact on the Clemson football program. Thank you so much for listening. We're excited to continue to bring you these stories from the ACC, and we have a lot more coming. If you've liked what you've heard so far, please subscribe and leave a review of the show in the podcast platform you're listening on right now. Also, please share the show with friends and fans. When we were doing interviews for the CJ Spiller story, we got to a point where we were chatting with Clemson head coach Dabo Swinney about recruiting CJ. And well, if you know anything about Dabo, you know he can spin a yarn. We felt like the conversation we had with him was worth sharing on its own. When you listen to this conversation, pay close attention to how little I contributed to it. There's just some great stuff here from Dabo. He's one of those rare figures in sports. Ask him the right question at the right time, it becomes an unforgettable fable. We hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, here's Coach Swinney.
Coach, it's Jeff Fischel.
Yeah, man. Long time no see.
I know. Anytime the ACC decides they want to try something new and digital, somehow I get brought back into it. So it's a fun time to be working with them again.
I love it.
Yeah, we'll kick this off. Between talking to CJ, talking to Tommy, I know your time as a recruiter is limited. How did you decide it was worth your time to go after a 5-star running back growing up near Gainesville, close to his mom, with Florida and Florida State going after him hard?
Well, I mean, it was my responsibility. It was my area. And, I always took pride in knowing my area, and I always recruited a lot of guys. I mean, there were some years, early on at Alabama, I was calling 60 guys a week, and I just would always carry a ton of guys. And, the recruiting was different back in those days when I was at Alabama, in that guys didn't make decisions till January. So you didn't know. And so, I would keep a lot of guys, and because you never really knew how it was going to play out. And you literally, guys would come in January and decide if they're coming. Now recruiting's so different. And even when CJ was coming out, nobody really made decisions until their senior year. I actually prefer that because I think it's a developmental game, and kids stay focused on their high school process. And so I'd been in Alabama for 13 years. So, and I had been recruiting there for 8. And my mindset was you go recruit the best players. When I came to Clemson in February of 2003, I didn't come here to with any different mindset I just came here like with the same thought process that I had at Alabama. I thought Clemson was a great place. And, I was excited to get back out on the road. I'd been out of coaching 2 years, and I was excited to get back out on the road and start recruiting and wearing that tiger paw. And I couldn't wait to go tell everybody about Clemson and Coach Bowden and our program. And we're going to build something special here. I was so fired up. And so really kind of spring of 2004 is when I really kind of got to know my area a little bit. But I had the Jacksonville area and Union County and Lake Butler, all the way down to Tallahassee, all down the I-10 corridor. So, that spring, of course, you're doing all your work all the time. It was very different. You didn't have the digital stuff. And you'd literally get like tapes. I had boxes of VCR and DVDs. The DVDs were a big deal. And we had a whole room where we would file the DVDs, and, we always had the tape. We could go to it. We had years of tape. And I remember the first time I'm getting ready to go out on the road, and I always would put this book together, and I would have every state and all my areas and all the information I could compile. It would just take hours to compile all these names. And, we would subscribe to all these different companies they would also do a lot of the due diligence and legwork. So I was always cross-checking and trying to figure out, okay, because you have limited time. You have some time and a little bit of time in January to maybe start on next year. But mostly when you go out in the spring is when you would really evaluate that upcoming senior class and start making some decisions. And so I had seen some tape on Spiller, and I just remember watching him, and I was like, this might be the best running back I've ever seen in high school football. I just couldn't believe it. And to put it in perspective, Travis Etienne in today's world he's so explosive. When you think of Travis Etienne, I think he's got 9 or 10 plays, maybe 11 of 50 yards or more. All right. CJ Spiller had like 21. Okay. I mean, and so take that and put it at the high school level. He was so fast, so explosive. And I just remember watching the tape, and I couldn't wait till the rules allowed me to start calling him. But I remember going down and to his high school, and I had actually coached Andrew Zhao at Alabama, and he was from that high school. So I knew a little bit about the area, but I'd never been there. And Buddy Nobles was the coach, and I'd met Buddy a couple times when he had come up with Coach Pruitt to work at our clinic at Alabama. So I had a little bit of working knowledge, and so I just bust up in there like everybody else, and want to talk to Buddy about CJ. And I didn't think anything less of myself or less of Clemson. Maybe I guess sometimes ignorance is bliss. I guess I just thought I could go recruit anybody. And anyway, we start that process, and I remember when first time I could call him, and we had a great conversation. And he didn't know much about Clemson, but we just hit it off. We literally just hit it off. And I guess I recruited him in a very different way than maybe some of the other people. But one of the things that struck me with him early was he was very sincere and very respectful, but he was just very wise beyond his years. And I could sense a level of maturity, and I could sense a level of focus and drive that not every 17-year-old has just yet. And he just wasn't caught up in the whole recruiting thing. And he was recruited from coast to coast by everybody. But I also remember our very first, back in those days, we would get together, and it was old school. So we'd open up the board, and I was so excited to come off the road at the end of May. And when you come off the road, you'd build the board of who you saw in your areas, and each coach would get their chance to present their guys. And you would, you're sitting there like selling your guys from your area, and everybody would go around the room, and you have it by position, like the receivers, and we'd have them all labeled. There'd be printout, like computer printout labels and on magnets, and it was all on this board. You just have names. I mean, it was just like gobs of names. And some coaches would put guys up there knowing they got no chance, but they needed to have some people from their area or something. But I remember when we got there, I get to CJ Spiller, and I'm like, guys, I'm just telling y'all, this is the best running back. I don't know who all these other guys are on the board up here, but I'm telling y'all, that guy there, he's the best running back I've seen. And so I'm going, I got some, some of those in the room. It was like, and I didn't really understand it. It was like, and finally it's like, look, we're not going to get that guy. Let's focus on who we got a chance to get. And I'm like, I was offended. I was like, what do you mean we're not going to get that guy? What are you talking about? He takes my call every week. We communicate. If I miss him, he calls me back. Whatever. We had this whole conversation about CJ, and I was like, well, I'm just going to go find out. So we just started the process, and then lo and behold, he ends up coming here. But it was amazing. It was an amazing experience recruiting him, and there was a lot of backstory involved in recruiting him that a lot of people don't know. That's you talk about some drama, man. I mean, there was some drama and a lot of things that I didn't know until after the fact. It's still amazing to me that he came and so, but we hit it off, and then, it's good. It's one thing to have a good relationship and all this and that, but he had never been here. And so in December, we were in bowl practice, and I knew it was going to be my last visit there. I went by the school, and I'm going to go by and visit at the house and come back later and have, just hang out. And so I was there all day. I go by the school, and I just said, look, all I want is a visit. I just felt like if I could get CJ Spiller to visit Clemson in January of 2006, that, man, we're taking our program to a whole new level. And I pulled out a business card, and I flipped over the business card, and I wrote, I, with a blank, do hereby agree to visit Clemson in January of 2006. And he thought that was hilarious. And he put CJ Spiller, and then I had 3 of his teammates witness it. I still got in fact, it's sitting on my desk right here. I've kept it all these years. And I told him, all right, well, that's all I need. I said, because I know you're a man of your word. So all I want is a visit. So you giving me your word you're going to visit, and I'm just going to quit worrying about it. Because I knew I wasn't going to see him the rest of Christmas and all that. And then, but anyway, going home late at night, it was after 10 o'clock. I broke down. I had a blowout on County Road 100 between Lake Butler and Lake City, in the middle of nowhere, dark, pitch black, broken down. All I got's a flip phone in those days. I'm in a rental Trailblazer, brand new. And I'm like, this is not happening. I mean, it's like nothing but trees, nothing but darkness. I have no cell service because it's about a 35-minute middle of nowhere between Lake City and Lake Butler. And so all I do is cold. I got a 7 a.m. staff meeting. We got bowl practice the next day. And so I just start walking back toward Lake Butler. And I've just got my flip phone open, just looking for a bar, Jack the Ripper's looking at me in the woods. I mean, I just feel like a bear or something's going to come out and get me. And I'm just walking. I finally get a bar. And my tire had exploded. I have no idea how to change the tire. I'm in a brand new rental Trailblazer. I don't even know where the tire is, and it's so dark I can't see. And finally get a bar. I call CJ. I'm like, hey, man, him and his stepdad, Leon, I say, I need some help. Y'all the only people I know, and I'm on the side of the road. And they knew right where I was. They're going, what? You broke down there? I'm like, yeah. And so then I turn and walk all the way back to the car. And I get in the car, I lock the doors, and I'm just sitting there. And it was forever. But they finally get there, and I'll never forget, they see the lights, and they pull up behind me. And if you could have seen the three of us trying to figure out how to change that tire, because it was back, how things are. Now I know how to do all that, but you had to put it all together, fish it. You had to put it through a hole, fish it through a hole, get it on a hook, crank a tire down below. I mean, it's crazy. You got to have a PhD to do that stuff now. And I mean, but we had, when it was all said and done, I was like, well, I guess you've saved me. It's just meant to be. And so anyway, I get on back, and then he honors his commitment, and he almost didn't come. He almost backed out. He was tired. He had been to Gainesville Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I said, look, CJ, you promised me you were coming. So he did, came by himself. I picked him up. So he flew from Gainesville after that visit on a Sunday to Atlanta. So I picked him up. We drove all the way up to Clemson, never been here. And we had a great visit, great ride. He was here that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I was here with him, but typically I would be on the road recruiting Monday, Tuesday. So there was nobody here. But, he and James Davis went to dinner with us. I remember that, and got to meet Kath and of course, Coach Bowden. But so on Tuesday, he had to fly back, and I had to hit the road recruiting. The GA who was going to take him to the airport was going to drop me off at the Clemson little airport because I'm getting on the school plane to go. Getting ready to get on the plane, and he stops me. He says, Coach, I had a great time. He said, I'm about 99% this is where I'm going to come to school. And I'm like, I am about to do cartwheels through this. I'm so excited. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. He said, I just think this is what I need. He said, I'm about 99%. And I said, well, look, I'm getting on this plane. I'm actually flying to Tallahassee. I was recruiting DeAndre McDaniel, other guys in Florida. And his teammate, Kevin Alexander, was also committed to us. And I said, I'm bringing Tommy in on Thursday, Coach Bowden. And I said, now he can only come one time. I said, so if you really want to do this, you're going to have to tell him. I said, because we're only taking one back, and there was 3 guys. And he goes, okay. So I'm so excited. I get there. So I pick up Tommy. We go to his house on Thursday. I'm thinking, we're going to go in. His mom's always great to me, and been around her a few times. But I think it's just she was just being nice to me. She didn't think he was coming to Clemson. And so we get there, and I'm just thinking there's going to be this moment, coming to Clemson, we're going to all be happy. And it just never happened. And I'm like, something's not right. And I don't know how we got on the conversation, but we got on the conversation, something about one of his trophies. I don't know if it was Mr. Football or whatever it was something with his trophy. He goes, yeah, let me show it to you. So we walk back into his room, and we get back there to his room, and he showed me his trophy, whatever. And I kind of leaned over and I said, hey man, you're making me look bad here. I got the head man. Has anything changed in 2 days? He goes, oh no, I'm good, Coach. He said, I don't want my mom to know. And I'm like, you don't want your mom to know? And he goes, yeah, I want it to be a surprise. And I'm like, I couldn't process that at the time. I'm like, okay. I said, well, look, he can't come back. So you're going to have to tell him. And this is the last week here. And so sure enough, we're walking out, and he kind of eases over to him. And he's like, hey, Coach, I'm coming to Clemson. And of course, Tommy, he's ecstatic. He's all fired up. And he goes, now, you tell me, can I count on him? He goes, yes, sir. He said, I'm coming to Clemson. So we're all excited. We're fired up. We're just pumped up. Of course, we get in the car and we call Burton Burns, his running back coach. He and I were colleagues together. And we're so excited to tell him. hey, CJ Spiller just told us he's coming, but he don't want anybody to know. He's going to keep it private. He's blah, 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 blah. And Burton Burns just went off. He just starts yelling. He's yelling at me and Coach Bowden. Have y'all lost your mind? He ain't coming there. What do you mean he's going? Are y'all crazy? Hey, he loves CJ, but he just couldn't wrap his mind around. But I'm like, he just told you the kid wouldn't lie to him. He just told Coach Bowden. But Burton had a kid down in Mississippi. And so we sat on it for a day or so, and then all of a sudden, the kid in Mississippi decides he wants to commit to Clemson. And Burton calls Coach Bowden and tell him, hey, this kid wants to commit. It's another great player. He said, look, I'm taking him. He said, we're not turning this coach. We can't turn. I got to have a running back. I can't turn this guy down and blah, 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 blah. And he wanted him to fly down there and like be in the area when he was going to announce and all this stuff. And so Tommy Bowden calls me. He goes, hey, this player, I won't say his name. He ended up going to Alabama, by the way. This player was really good, but he said such and such is real wanting to commit. And he's like, what do you think? And I'm like, and I said, well, I mean, coach, I said, look, I mean, all I can do is take CJ at his word. I said, but you're the head coach, and I mean, I understand, I get it. There's a lot. I mean, he's got to go to Florida State this weekend, and I mean, it's been good. He's telling me the same thing, but he goes, oh my gosh, he Coach Bowden, he's like, he didn't know what to do. I said, and I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, how about this? I said, CJ is a great kid. I said, how about I call him? I said, let me call him and give him an out. Let me call him and tell him what's going on. And hey, listen, CJ, we have to have a back, and we're only taking one, and you're the guy, but we have this great player. And he knew who this player was. I said, and he wants to commit. And he wants Coach Burns to come down there. He wants Coach Bowden to fly down. And Coach Bowden, I just hung up the phone with Coach Bowden, and listen, we believe you. We don't have any, but is there anything that's changed over the weekend? Is there anything, because if we turn him down, we're not getting him back. And I just want to know if we need to send that plane to Mississippi. And CJ kind of paused for a minute, and he said, tell Coach Bowden he don't need to send that plane to Mississippi. He said, I'm the running back. And I said, are you sure? And he said, you don't need to send that plane to Mississippi. I said, okay. So I called Coach Bowden. Coach Bowden's like, oh my God, what'd he say? What'd he say? And I'm like, I said, Coach, he said, you don't need to send that plane to Mississippi. And Coach Bowden's like, oh my God. He's like, so now he's got a decision to make. And I said, and he's like, what do you think? And I said, well, Coach, I said, we have to have a back, and this is a great back. And I was like, but all I can tell you is I trust the kid. And I said, I just don't think he would lie to us, especially, I mean, I've given him an opportunity to get out of it. And I said, I trust him, but hey, you got to make the decision. And he pondered on it. And finally he says, I'm going to believe it.
We'll get back to the rest of Dabo's interview, but first, a word from our sponsor, Duke's Mayonnaise. Support for Legends and Legacies is provided by Duke's Mayonnaise and the Duke's Mayo Bowl, December 30th at noon on ESPN. Duke's, it's got twang.
So now he's like, oh my God, now I got to call Burton Burns back, and I got to, and so he calls Burton back to tell him, hey, look, you're going to have to tell the kid we don't have a spot. We've already taken a commitment and blah, 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 blah. And I mean, I don't know that I've ever been yelled at as bad when Burton Burns is calling me. He's going off. Y'all have lost your mind. CJ Spiller's not coming to Clemson, blah, 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 blah. And because, I mean, he's hot because he literally had to turn down this phenomenal player. And so the kid ends up going to Alabama. And funny thing, a couple years later, Burton goes to Alabama. Ended up coaching him anyway. But then he goes to Florida State for that last weekend, that last visit. And CJ goes dark on me. I can't get in touch with him. I don't know what's going on. I mean, Coach Bowden's calling me. Have you heard from him? And he's at Daddy's house. They're having a barbecue. That ain't good. And I mean, I'm going, and I've just kept going back to our relationship, and like, he wouldn't lie to me. I just know he wouldn't. I couldn't get it. Finally, it was late Sunday night. He finally called, and I could tell he was shook up and worn out, and he'd been in Florida State all weekend. And I'm like, hey man, everything good, and he's like, oh yeah, everything's good, coach. I'm just tired, And then all of a sudden, so I talked to him like one time Monday, and then he went dark again, like gone, like dark. The next thing I know, I'm getting calls from Tommy, and Coach Bobby Bowden's calling Tommy, and he's telling Tommy, yeah, Tommy, I think y'all are out of it. I think it's Florida and us. But I'm a little worried about the Gators down there. And Tommy's like, no, I heard y'all are out of it. We're in it. And it was kind of comical listening to the conversation that's going between Bobby Bowden and Tommy Bowden. And then he's like, hey, I heard they send Tim Tebow and some of the Florida players to go pick him up and ride him around and, all this stuff. And I'm going, oh, my God, now Tebow's involved. I'm freaking out. And I didn't hear from him. And so then we wake up Wednesday morning, and just like this, we're sitting in our office with a computer screen. That's all we have. And there must have been 100 and something people down the hallway. I'll never forget it. And I mean, I was about to vomit because we have no back if he doesn't come. Burton's mad as a hornet. And I mean, if he doesn't come, like this is going to be awful. And I couldn't get in touch with him, but I finally just told myself, I said, you know what? He is an amazing kid. I kept coming back to that. I said, I know he would not lie to me. I said, but if he had some type of change of heart, he would have called me and told me, Coach, I can't do it. He would have done that. I know we have a good enough relationship. He would have called. So that gave me a little bit of peace. But then he started the press conference, and I mean, there's thousands of people there, and he gets up there, and you could have heard a pin drop. And he, on the way to the podium, he writes on a napkin, hands it to his mom. He had written Clemson as he's walking up, and that's when she found out. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, he gets up there and he says, "I'm going to Clemson." And I mean, it was an earthquake in Clemson. But you could have heard a pin drop because half of them wanted to go to Florida State, half wanted to go to Florida, and we were just not even in it. He was just being nice to us. But that right there was the first change to this program. I mean, I'm not here today without CJ Spiller, that's for sure. He was the first one to really believe in me, to believe in Clemson, and it was amazing, and then he came here, and then, they tried to recruit him out of here after his freshman year. He almost left again. And, he ended up staying again. And then I get the job as an interim in 2008, and he could have left and gone pro. And I thought he was going pro. We went into the when he left my office, he had tears in his eyes. This was January of 2009. I'd just gotten the job full time. And, we just said, we were talking, he wiped his tears away, and he said, okay, I'm ready. And we get up, and I'll never forget, I see Tim Beret, and Tim Beret's looking at me. He's got a room full of people. We're late coming in the press thing, and the whole place is packed. And he looks at me, and I went, I thought he was leaving. So I go into the back of the room, and he gets up there. I mean, it was amazing. And he says, I'm coming back to Clemson. And here's why. He wanted to graduate. He wanted to be a top 10 pick, and he wanted to lead us to a championship. And he did all those things. He led us to our first division title. And even though we didn't win that ACC championship down there in Tampa in 2009, ironically, it was the only time it was in that stadium in Tampa in 2009. He was the MVP of the game, and we lost. It was the most unbelievable performance I've ever seen. And the crazy thing about it, I just remember being so disappointed. 7 years later, we won a national championship in the same stadium. And, and so that to me just is how God works and how it all, comes together and timing of things, but just been an amazing relationship for a long, long time. And we've been really close for forever. And he always came back here in the off season. But I give him a lot of credit, man, because he took a leap of faith and he came here for the right reasons. We've had some unbelievable conversations from his perspective as well over the years. And now he's 33 and he just joined my staff as a grad assistant and wants to now get into coaching, and can't wait for him to start that journey off and see where that goes. But he's a unique young man. He's on the board of trustees for IPTE. Got a standing ovation at graduation from the entire board. I mean, everybody, the whole place. To my knowledge, that's the only time that's happened. but his impact and his legacy is just unbelievable. And graduated in 3.5 years. He's just always been about the right things. I mean, he'll whenever he's eligible, his name will be on that stadium. You can best believe that. I mean, just look at him like a son, and it's been awesome to see him, now come back and be able to experience some of these things that he really truly helped build.
So you mentioned him slipping the piece of paper to his mom on the day he announced he's coming to Clemson. Then he surprised his mom again when he said he was coming back for his senior year. Would you give that advice to anyone? Like, don't surprise your mom twice, right?
Oh,
like
my gosh. Yes. I mean, it was, and I didn't know the dynamics there. See, because his mom was always great to me. I never had any issues. But when I figured it out that night, because she called, she's not happy. She's fighting. She is irate. And, like Kath called her, congratulated her. She was not happy. In fact, Kath was kind of crying when I got home. She's like, I talked to CJ's mom. She's not happy. I was like, I know. I've been, and I didn't know any of that. But that's why he didn't want her to know, because he did not want to deal with the pressure, and just he knew what he wanted to do. And he, like I said, he was just really wise beyond his years. He's very, very focused, and he just has an unbelievably strong faith. And he wanted to make his decision. And he said, this is a business decision for me. If I make this decision as a fan, then he's going to Florida State. If he makes it for his mom, he's going to Florida. But if he makes it in his mind, the best place for him to build a legacy and have the opportunity to do something unique and different, he says, I'm going to Clemson. And it was, and I didn't know that until after the fact. We talked about, really why, but his mom was not happy. And then I remember she came up that spring for the spring game. She was still not happy. She was pouting. She was this and that. And CJ's like, coach, don't worry. She'll come around. He, like I said, he was very mature and loves his mom to death. But he was like, look, she'll come around. Well, then we go through the freshman year, and he has a great year. And all of a sudden he got like 3 touches in the bowl game. I mean, just something ridiculous. Literally, his mom is calling. And I mean, so from that point on, I'm out now. We had some dead time because we played in an early bowl. And so I'm in San Antonio at the coach's clinic, and Coach Bowden's calling me. He's like, hey, look, have you talked to CJ? I'm like, no, what's going on? Well, the word is he's leaving. I'm going, what? So I call CJ. He's like, yeah, coach. He said, look, I'm on the way back to Clemson to probably get my stuff. He said, I hadn't made my full decision. He said, but I'm really thinking about, just coming on back home. And I'm like, CJ. So I'm like, look, I'm on a plane. I literally got on a plane. I had just gotten to San Antonio, flew back, met him there. We went and rode around and just talked. And he consulted with his family, his pastor and a couple of his close friends. And, he kind of got refocused, and he's like, you know what? He said, you're right. He said, I came because he was going to have to sit out a year, and I'm like, CJ, it's going to get better. And so he stays. Well, his mom wasn't happy then, but he stays. So then he goes on and he does well. And then I become the interim in 2008. And man, soon as I got the job, I said, okay, all right, I'm creating a touch chart, and y'all keep me. I want to know how this guy's going to touch the ball every time, any way you can think about it. Pump, turn, kick, turn. We're throwing it to him. I'm handing it to him. And man, I rode him like a mule that second half of the 2008 season, and he was awesome. And then I get the job, and he's got another decision, and the same thing. His mom, she's yelling at me. She wanted him to leave, and so we had kind of a love-hate relationship there for a while. And I told her, I said, Patricia, listen, I'm not making this decision. I'm just supporting your son in whatever he wants to do. And so, it comes down to that. And so he decides to stay. And so she wasn't real happy about that, but it all worked out. And really, I'm just telling you, God honored that young man for his faith, for his belief, for his trust. I really believe that. I mean, God truly honored CJ for the way he just did everything. The way he handled himself, his character, his integrity. And the crazy thing is me and Patricia became great friends. A few years down the road, she sent me in fact, I saved it in my phone. She sent me the biggest, longest message. She's the biggest Clemson fan out there now. And at his wedding, she and I danced together, and we sat together at the wedding on the front row. So just amazing how things all work out in the end. And, just a great family. His daughter, Shania, she's grown up Clemson. And yeah, you talk about them Tigers in the wrong way to Miss Patricia down there right now. She's gonna get after it. So just pretty cool to see everything kind of come full circle and see the type of man, that CJ has grown into. And that's what Patricia ultimately saw. Ultimately, she saw why he chose Clemson, why we have the relationship that we have. And so it's pretty cool to see, it all play out.
Absolutely. I'll hit you up with one more thing, and then I'll let you go, Dabo. CJ was that first big player you got out of Florida, and then Sammy came along a little bit later. Now the list is getting pretty long. What impact does that pipeline have on the Clemson program? Yeah,
well, I think obviously there's a lot of talent in Florida, and we also got Jacoby Ford. And he and Jacoby became great friends, and Jacoby wasn't as highly recruited, but he turned out to be a great player, very successful from Florida, DeAndre McDaniel. But man, he was, just was not the norm for a kid like that to leave Florida and to go, not go to Miami or Florida State. And so I think the fact that he was able to come here and have the type of success that he had, to graduate 3.5 years, to really truly equip himself with just tools for life, and had a great experience and so forth, that resonates. Every time he speaks of Clemson, every time and like I said, now he's a board member. Now he's coming back on the staff. This is a place that, you can be more than an All-American on the football field. And I think that, again, that resonates all over. And so it certainly opened up some other eyes in the state of Florida as we started building our program. And then next thing you know, here comes Sammy Watkins, guys like that really made huge impacts here in our program.
Thank you for listening to this edition of Legends and Legacies, The Spiller Effect. Special thanks to our guests, CJ Spiller, Dabo Sweeney, Don Munson, Tom Luganbill, and Tammy Nobles. We're honored to tell CJ's story and appreciate everyone taking the time to join us. Legends and Legacies is a Raycom sports production in conjunction with Two Waves Media. Editing and sound mixing is provided by Resonate Recordings. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a few friends or fellow fans. I'm your host, Jeff Fischel. Talk to you next time.